what does the law say? There's a Cyber Crime Act. First of all, this law has been there since 2015. So it's not a 2024 legislation. The 2024 Act only just amended the 2015 Act. And this clause has even been there since 2015. So 2024 only just made a little modification because what was in the 2015 Act was just 0.005. It wasn't clear whether that was percentage or decimal. But the 2024 Act now amended that, to say 0.5% or 0.005 in decimal. And what the Act says, right, is that electronic transactions will attract a 5% cybersecurity levy from businesses. Emphasis. Transactions by businesses listed in the schedule in that act. And what does the schedule say? The schedule lists 5 businesses: GSM and telecom, stock exchange, insurance, banks and financial institutions, right? And one other entity. 5 of them, right? Like
The stock exchange.
insurance,
Yes, mention
banks and financial
Insurance
institutions,
companies,
GSM,
Okay.
internet
telcos,
service
ISP.
yes, right? So these 5 entities are the entities that are bound by that section. That's what the Act says. Now, also, as lawyers, one of the things we don't do is that we don't read sections in isolation. If you look further in that law, you will find that the punishment or the penalties for non-compliances refer to businesses. Do you understand me? The penalties refer to businesses.
Yeah.
Businesses that fail to comply will be fined or wound up. So that clearly puts it in purview. So let's keep that in one place. And then we go to the CBN guidance or the CBN circular that makes it appear to seem that it is a general application. Because what we take out of that conversation is that if I go to buy bread and I give my POS, we deduct 0.5% cybersecurity levy from that. I do not think that was the intent of the makers of that law. And I don't think that in any wave of interpretation, that is what that law means. So what has happened is that the CBN circular and the Act are not in sync. There is a divergence. And that must be clarified. Then secondly, the guidance proceeds to give certain exemptions. So again, I will take you back to the Act. The Act established a cyber security advisory council made up of about 18 or so entities. CBN is only a member of that council. The Act empowers the council to oversee and regulate the implementation of the provisions of the Act, and not CBN. So I'm wondering if CBN really has the powers to issue the guidance they have issued. Should that not be coming from the Cybersecurity Council? Or is that guidance flowing from the instructions of the council? They will need to clarify that. But then they go ahead to make a couple of exemptions. Exemptions that are not in the Act. The Act does not make any exemption. The Act provides for all, uses the phrase all. But then they go to make exemptions. So what has happened? The CBN have, by that letter, attempted to make law. Let's even assume that
And it's
those
not as if
exemptions...
the Act has been amended.
Yeah. Let's even assume that those exemptions are rightly made. The next question we'll be asking would be, what are the indices for determining what, for instance, salary payment is?
Mm-hmm.
What are the indices for determining loan repayment? What are the indices for determining
Mm.
school fees payment? I'm not sure that
Yeah.
they have thought through these measures, because what will now happen
That is the word.
would
That
be that,
exactly
you
is
now
the
say
word.
you would determine what is salary from the narrative or from the sender and the receiver. If I work in Techpoint, for instance, Techpoint can make multiple transfers to me during the month for different assignments. So which one exactly?
Mm-hmm.
Are we now going to look at the timing? Okay, so this one comes on the 30th, so this is salary. Does the bank really work? So
Yeah.
you guys are the gurus in the technology space, right? Does the bank or the financial institution
Not yet, though.
No.
have the function?
Ah, that assumption is not
Do
welcome.
they have the functionalities to now use the narratives in transfers to determine the authenticity of the transactions? So
So these are the questions on
it's
many
every
people's mind, and it further buttresses the point that this has not been truly
it
thought
appears to
through.
be a hasty decision, or one that was made without
Yeah.
fully contextualizing the intent of the act.
Hmm. So if you looking at it now, how undercooked this particular directive looks like, looking at the cybercrime act, which of the provisions there do you think would have been easier to implement, if not this, especially to make the fund active?
No, so the Cybercrime Act goes beyond the fund. We are just Everyone is just raising hula badoo because of the deductions and the fears that come with the deductions.
Mm-hmm.
But really, what really is the intent of the act? When you talk about the Cybercrime Act, what are you talking about? The act is supposed, is enacted to ensure the prevention, detection, prosecution, and punishment of cyber crimes in
Mm.
Nigeria.
Yeah.
It is enacted to ensure the protection of critical national information infrastructure, promote cyber security, and protect computer systems and networks,
Mm-hmm.
protect data and the intellectual property rights of internet users. So it's a good law, and the intent is essential to a continued and improved digital economy. So we are in technology and innovation, right? And
Mm-hmm.
in this fourth industrial revolution, right, you need laws like this. Now, the Office of the National Security Advisor is the office established under law, and within its purview is cybersecurity. They've gone ahead to establish a cyber security advisory council. That advisory council includes all the agencies and bodies that, in one way or the other, would relate with issues that have to do with cybercrime,
Mm-hmm.
and also private sector personnel. Because, for instance, the Internet Society of Nigeria, the Computer Society of Nigeria, some private sector practitioners are, by that law, members of that cybersecurity advisory council. And it is the duty of the council to formulate policies and regulations to ensure the attainment of the objectives under the Act. So the levy, for instance, is a part of that Act, and essentially a means of generating the necessary funds to help fight cybercrime.
Okay.
Because again, as you know, Nifemi, as an expert in technology,
Oh
you
God.
know that cybercrime is expensive,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I think that what has happened is that since 2015, when the act was amended, certain aspects of the act were just left in abeyance. And then our government today has woken up to now begin to look at all the loopholes for revenue generation, and they are plugging those loopholes. Because I
This is the
believe
low
that maybe
hanging
previously
fruit.
there was a budget for cybersecurity. And then someone says, hey, wait a minute, there's an act that enables certain levies. You're not activating that. Please go collect that money from there. I don't have money to give
So low hanging fruit. So I think it remains to be seen how they are going to implement this, and that is what you are looking at, because a lot of things are not very clear in this, in how this is going to be enforced, how it's going to be implemented, how is especially the technology involved, because this is a technology problem, as it were. Because if you can't define what the money is from the originator to the receiver, at that point there's no how you can deduct the fee. And going by the kind of situation that exists between telcos,
you.
where some of these deductions are fulfilled after it has been done, if you want to do that with banks, it will be very difficult, because after you say, okay, maybe after the end of the month we will now look at which money is coming from where and for what, then we now do the deduction. Many people will be
Actually, there's
owing
a
people.
reporting window.
There's a reporting
30
window.
days.
There's a reporting window. So if you do not
Report
reconcile,
exactly.
yeah,
So
you pay a fine.
I hope they think about it again and see maybe there are other ways to put money in the fund. Thank you very much, Omori, for joining us. We understand that you need to be on another call very soon. We would have loved to have you for other stories, but thank you very much for the insights you've given. And then we are not technology experts. We are just technology journalists.
I'm a technology expert.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Do
thank
enjoy
you,
the
thank
rest of
you very
your
much for
day.
having me. I'll continue to put you on the spot. In fact, I'll go on social media and I'll start calling you my tech expert.
Please now. Okay, I think Omari has mentioned what this levy is for and why it exists and why it's the lowest hanging fruit to put money in the cyber security fund. But yeah, there are other provisions in the Cybercrime Act that I want us to quickly touch on before we move on from their story. And Omari mentioned some of them, which means that which includes the act has been on for almost a decade now, if not more, and this particular levy only affects businesses
Businesses, yeah.
and not even all businesses. So what other things is it that people might have been missing that might have caused the panic that this particular story caused?
I think the only person that should be blamed for any panic is the CBN, not any other person, because the wording of the circular was confusing to
Like every
almost
Nigerian.
everyone. So yes, if you people were able to point out really quickly that this is supposed to be for businesses, but for most of us who were not aware of the act before the circular went out, nobody was aware. Like, you'd have to make a reference to the act to understand that this is business. Like, it's just businesses that are being referred to. But even when you do that, you now start seeing some of the exemptions, and some of the exemptions now make you wonder, okay, how is this? Like, I don't know how many businesses pay tuition. If any of you pay tuition, please please reach out to me. But yeah, I think it's the CBN that has to be
Blame.
like if we are putting blames anywhere, it's the CBN. And
So Cybercrime Act.
yeah.
What are the things that people are missing out?
Oh, there are quite a few. So one of the first things that I saw that made me laugh was if you want to operate a cyber cafe right now, you have to register with the Computer Professionals Registration Council. You remember that earlier in the year there was some chatter about IT professionals who we really do not know what qualifies as IT professionals right now, because is a graphic designer going to be an IT professional? Is the growth marketer at a startup qualifying as
I'm
those are
as a
different
tech journalist, am I
yeah,
an
are
IT
you an IT
professional?
professional? But there was some chatter about you having to register with a society or I don't know, like basically go and register a club in order for you to practice information technology.
Mm.
Still very vague what information technology
Yeah.
means. But for this case, if you want to operate a cyber cafe, you have to register with those guys, and you also have to register with the CAC, like do a business name registration. In addition, you will maintain a register. So every person who comes through to use your facilities, you have to keep a record of them, and that record can be demanded by law enforcement. And part of the reason I think they want a register is for cyber crimes committed at cyber cafes. So there are penalties for cyber crimes committed, either aiding them or cyber crimes committed at cyber cafes.
I think that there's like the state of emergency should be put on this act to be amended. So I think when it came up, it was like at the time where more people use cyber cafes.
I mean, this is
but
an
we don't have
amended
like
act, and
it's amended.
Yeah, it's an amended act. So that's why we are seeing the levy coming up. It was amended in 2024, which, for example, we couldn't find, as at the time the CBN circular went out, we couldn't find any copy of the amended act on the internet. We couldn't find it, and fortunately, some people were able to find it, and they shared it. But before then, we couldn't find it, because I checked on Tuesday morning, I couldn't find it anywhere. But someone was kind enough to share it. But yeah, it's been amended. But one of the things I noticed while reading through is some of the will I say circumstances around the time it was created, they've changed. Right?
Yeah.
So for example, cyber cafes are not exactly a thing right now. There are a few around, to be fair.
Yes, but not as much as people with mobile phones. You not carry around the internet. So
exactly. So maybe they are trying to like cover all bases. But yeah, that particular section wasn't amended. Something else that I saw is so for child pornography, which I don't know how much of a problem it is in Nigeria. So
should be
but it's
I think there's
like very strict fines and jail terms as well. You cannot groom a minor. If you like, you can, but if you do, you shall pay a fine or go to prison. There's a penalty for that. There's a penalty too for sending unsolicited. So those of you that have to send nudes,
you can be persecuted.
Yes, those of you that have to send unsolicited nudes, you will be prosecuted, assuming the person reports. So it's actually a crime to send unsolicited nudes. Funny enough, it doesn't. Yeah, I mean, I've heard some stories of people like, you slide into DMs, you're sliding nudes.
Yeah, I guess.
So funny thing is, it doesn't cover. What's it called? Is it hate porn now? Like where someone records a sex tape and then puts it out or threatens to put it out on the internet. It doesn't. I believe it's a cyber crime. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, it is.
I believe it's a cyber crime. But nothing is mentioned. So yes, I guess that's something that should be included. in the should probably be amended again. But
what does actually change from the amendment in 2015?
It's actually wording.
2024.
For the most part, is wording. It's like, so for I think section 17, they use genesis instead of genuineness in 2015. So it's basically, I don't know, they need a copy editor.
Spelling mistakes.
Yeah, a lot of spelling mistakes they need pressures in their life. So I don't know.
This is I'm not making a claim here. So I just thought that when this came to view and we're looking like, how do we fund this act? And there is a fund for it. What is the quickest thing we can do to get money into the fund? And I think why this was reviewed or amended, as the case is for the sake of the levy.
I would not go as far. So the first thing is that I would never divorce bad faith actions from the Nigerian government. But the second thing is, I don't think that's why it was amended, although it could be why it was amended. So very little amendment was actually made to the section. I don't think any amendment. Yeah, if I remember correctly, no amendment was made to the section that contains the fund or that addresses the fund. I can't remember any amendment being done to that. But I think the thing is, from the way the fund is set up, right, The other avenues of funding it is fines. And like I was saying before we started the podcast, I personally think the fines are not good enough. Although Maury says it should be punitive but not vindictive. So I still think that, for example, fining a bank less than 10 million naira for lapses in their cybersecurity infrastructure is too small for you. Like, you could do that to a smaller company, but not to a bank that has billions of dollars billions of naira in annual. What is 10 million naira, to be honest? Like,
so there are a lot of things to unpack here.
Oh, sorry, there's one more, and this is the part that I need the creators of that act to probably come speak to us about, right? If so, your bank has a duty of care to put in place cybersecurity measures. However, if your account is breached or hacked, you now have the burden of proof to show that the financial institution did not do what they are supposed to do. I don't know how that's going to play out for the average person like me, who is not a cybersecurity expert. How do I know that the bank did not put like the specific guardrails in place?
Okay.
I don't know.
So
how
I think
that.
that's the way it works for many products, especially maybe digital products. That is why they add terms and conditions. Wait, that's why they add terms and conditions, so you can check those between the lines to see what they're indemnifying themselves against, and where it ends on their part and where it starts on your part. So
okay, different conversation, because my own problem is on the burden of proof. How do I prove that the bank did not do what they were supposed to do?
That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not here to defend anyone.
That's assuming I actually know what they're supposed to do.
Okay, so if you isolate the case of maybe you were, maybe your phone was stolen, right, and they had access to your bank app, right, which was supposed to be maybe biometric secured or passworded, and they had access to it, right. That particular case is either there is a bug or there's something wrong with the mobile app that made them to have access to it. So in that case, if you approach your bank and you're asking questions on how were they able to access my app, right, your bank will probably say maybe it's not passworded, right, or something else, or you didn't protect the security of your mobile phone. That is one. So they are trying to move the body of proof to you. I'm speaking about this from experience now. You get. So if you are able to look for something the bank is supposed to do to make sure that their mobile app, for instance, is not accessible except through the owner, if you can look for something then you can shift the blame to the bank. But as far as the bank is concerned, for your bank app to be secured, for someone to gain access to your bank app without your presence there, that means that you've either given that person access. Maybe their fingerprint is also can also access your bank apps or whatever it is on your phone. You get. So what the reason I made that case is because if you find out very well, the bank's influence ends as a point, and you as a user, your influence ends as a point. So in that case, you might not be able to tell that exactly this is what my bank is supposed to do. But when you present a case, right, and they give you the possibility of how that is possible, how the fraud was able to happen, then you can also look at where your bank should have protected you. And then if you present that case and they say, okay, this and this is what we have done to make sure this did not happen, it has to be human error from your side, then I don't know what defense you want to put up on that. Again, I am not trying to defend banks.
To listen to the full episode of this podcast, visit podcast.techpoint.africa or search for Techpoint Africa Podcast on your favorite podcast platforms.